you go. You try to follow, you're told what went where, etc. But it was a miracle he found us.
Yeah.
From then on, it was easier. Now it's 1945, and it's February. The plan now is to get across Germany to Flensburg, which is on the Danish border, because a school friend of my mother's had moved there before the war, and my mother was still in touch with her. And we had the postcard from her with her address on that my mother had brought from Estonia. Now, here we are making our plans at the railway station when along comes a contingent of officials who say, who are you? Where are you from? Oh, we have the right place for you. And we're taken on board. And when the gates of the concentration camp slam behind us, we realize that we have kind of been captured. It wasn't one of the big ones, and my sister and I could not remember the name of it. My father might have, but he died in 1962, and my mother didn't remember any of these things. So here we are in this concentration camp where they're all sent out to work except for me. But the commandant's assistant was an Estonian woman. She couldn't get out herself, but she tried to get Estonians out of there. And so when she saw the postcard my mother had, she told the commandant that we were expected in Flensburg, where there was housing for us and there were jobs for us. So the commandant said, okay, let them go.
So let you go, just like that. Just like that.
Yeah, just like that. So
you, I mean, can I just ask? So you're in a concentration camp in Germany.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But this was within the first few days.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to be there. Germany's in a real panic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We passed Berlin when it was burning from having been bombed on the train at one point. And they really didn't know what they would do. All these refugees crowding in. And of course, the refugees were all coming from Soviet overtaken lands. So those who were fleeing from Germany were fleeing in other directions, fleeing south, Israel, and so on. Whereas all these refugees, which are now crowding into Germany, aren't really a problem for Germany, because we're not going to bomb buildings or do anything like that, but they are a problem in that they need to put us somewhere. So now we're going to hiding. We hide out, we wait in railway stations, don't know if the trains are going to run or not, but we hide out. We dig up potatoes in the field and cook them. Potatoes with nothing on them stick in your throat. Trying to fry potatoes, Bratkartoffeln, without any butter or margarine. I still have that feeling in my throat of where they just stick and stick. And bread we hadn't seen. In Poland, we had, every morning I'd get up in Poland and say, how many pieces of bread can I have today? So food was very, very scarce. But we did eventually, we met up with another Estonian family, which tagged on to us. And we made our way to Flensburg. And we get to Flensburg. The Estonian woman and her family had found for us an abandoned yacht club, which was across the river from them. And it had been closed for the war. So it was empty. So we used a couple of the rooms as bedrooms, and then there was a big hall at the back with changing rooms for them to store their equipment and so on, and the railway line the other side. The adults found jobs in granaries. There were several granaries around there, and they found jobs there, and they would bring handfuls of grain back home, and we'd toast the grain on top of a primer stove and then crunch it. It was like popcorn which hadn't popped. but it was something to eat.
Yeah.
I also chewed dried peas. When I got to Bermuda, my dentist said, I've never seen teeth as flat as yours. That was because I chewed all these hard things.
Yeah.
So we were now safe to the my job at night and during the day was to walk up and down the railways and pick up any pieces of coal I could find, because we needed that. And also there was a small hole in the coal yard, and I was encouraged to climb inside there and pass coal out at night. Also collect cigarette ends, cigarette butts from the street, so that the men could unwrap the remaining tobacco and then use it to make their own roll-up cigarettes.
To use or to sell on?
No, to smoke themselves, because you couldn't buy any. Yeah, my father was a heavy smoker. No, that was it. And I would also raid the waste baskets of offices nearby, because they had beautiful pieces of paper sometimes, and carbon copies which were in color. And if I had a whole sheet that was plain, that was treasure. I could draw on it and write on it, etc. So that was pure joy. And anything that washed up from the water, from the sea, like pencils or other stuff that had fallen off a ship, or a ship had been bombed, or whatever, pieces of material that my sister made into doll's clothes for me. I didn't have a doll, but I dressed my pillow up as a doll.
See, kids will always find, no matter what the situation, to make the best of what they have. And that's really
Yes. But the worst day there in Flensburg, well, one of the worst days was when some German boys came. We were right on the waterside, and they started collecting jellyfish and chopping them up. And there were these bits of jelly flopping around, and I go in and my mother serves me sago. I don't know if you've ever had sago, but it
I've never heard of it.
Like chopped up jellyfish.
Oh no.
And I could not eat it. She was furious, and I just vomited it up. I haven't been able to eat anything like that since then.
No.
Okay, but we're I remember, I don't know whether I remember the day the war ended, but I remember the day we heard that Hitler was dead.
Yes.
And then pretty soon after, the British
What was the
forces
reaction
moved in.
to that, if I can ask?
I think everything went very quiet.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. I really just see little snippets of film in my mind.
Yeah.
And I think the offices were closed, but that could have been the day the war ended.
Possibly.
My dog is here taking a look.
I love
Very
it.
cute.
Very cute.
My black lab. War ended, we were in the British zone. First sentence of English I was taught, please give me chocolate. So the others who were bigger and bolder actually got chocolate.
Yes.
I would dive and hide, so nobody found me. And I remember the first ice cream. The first ice cream was wonderful. It was actually a water ice, but it was the first thing of that kind that you could get.
Yeah.
What was it like from going from chewing peas and grain?
Oh, you did it
the
at
British
the same
arriving
time.
with chocolate and ice cream.
Well,
were the British in your mind?
very little chocolate and one ice cream.
No, I know, but what?
It was like a world opening up.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Not to be afraid anymore. But shortly after this, we are woken up in the morning by bombs exploding. Now the war's ended. and there are slivers of bomb coming in from all sides into the bedroom. And we all rush out in our night clothes with blankets around us and find everybody else in the neighborhood is gathering there too. And some officials are trying to get us organized, trying to find out what's happened. What happened was that there was a store of bombs, bomb storage somewhere nearby, and somebody had dropped the bomb. And all went up. So they spent a lot of time making sure that nothing else is going to explode, and they get us together and they start marching us into town, into Flensburg, so across the river and into Flensburg. I have a vest on that I slept in and a blanket around myself. I'm so embarrassed I don't have any underpants on. I'm 6 years old. This is terrible, but we're all in this state, barefoot, and we get to Flensburg and the British troops are marching in the street, celebrating the King's birthday. So we stayed with our friends until it was safe to return to the yacht club. And shortly after that, the Allies started gathering people into displaced persons camps, and we got word you had to sign up to them. And we got word that we would go to Meerbeek, which was just west of Hanover. So we went to this village there, Meerbeek, which had been taken from the Germans. The Germans had killed a British flyer who'd landed there or parachuted there. And as punishment for that, the village had been taken away from them and they were forced to live with their relatives outside. So we were in a kind of dangerous zone because they resented us being there very much. But we occupied the whole village. There were Estonians, Lithuanians, Poles, Czechoslovakians, etc. And each family had a room. There were 10 rooms in our house, and each family had one room, and everybody built a little stove, brick stove in each room. And there was a kitchen that everybody could use, and there was a garden we could share, you know, with apple trees and pear trees. And I had 17 rabbits,
17.
Not intentionally, but
Yeah.
17 rabbits at the same time. So we had meat. And
how much space did that occupy of the 10 rooms available?
Pardon?
How much space in the house did that occupy with only 10 rooms available?
Oh no, that was outside.
Kept in the garden?
Rabbit hatches were outside.
Apologies.
Mm-hmm. Somebody had a pig too. And we weren't supposed to have pigs. We weren't allowed to have livestock. So when the house was inspected, on one famous occasion, somebody stuck the pig on a toilet, put a hat on it, and the inspector went, "Oh, sorry, Mom."
That is...
Yeah. A friend of mine wrote this recorded this in her autobiography, because I had forgotten about, I knew about the pig, but I forgot about that. When we did eventually eat the pig, everybody got a cut.
You ate it in
now, all the nationalities there started their own schools and their own workshops. The men started doing, and my father was very handy with woodwork and so on. They started making beautiful jewelry boxes. They started doing leather stuff where you use the leather to, I don't know how to describe it, you stuff patterns into it with cotton wool in there and so on. And so there were these things they could sell. And we started getting food from the UNRRA and the Red Cross. And always a big day when those came. And that's where I started school. Estonians attend school from 7 onwards, age of 7.
That's quite late. Well,
Oh
late.
yeah, by the second term, they're already on cursive handwriting and so on, because you learn very fast at that age.
Yeah.
So I obviously knew how to read and write before, because I learned the German for it. My sister thinks she taught me. She doesn't think my mother did. She says she taught herself. But there we are. I loved school.
Yeah.
Then in 1947, the nations again got together and tried to clear Germany of refugees. So as there were some 850,000 of us in the various camps, never mind the ones who hadn't signed up and who were trying to exist out of sight.
Yeah.
And there were 5 countries which opened their doors. The US reluctantly, Canada reluctantly, Sweden, Australia, and the UK. Now in 1947, I say the US and Canada reluctantly, because you had to have people in the US or Canada who would pay for you.
Ah, okay.
So if you didn't have anyone to support you, as some of the Jews from New York said, oh, I remember that time, because we all collected our money together to get as many Jews out as possible.
Yeah. That's why so many went to New York. Obviously,
yes.
the East Coast,
yeah. So that left us with 2 choices. If the war started up again, and anything could happen, Sweden was too near. If Estonia were freed, Australia was too far. So that left us with the UK. And the men and single women were sent ahead to get jobs. My father was sent to a farm to get jobs, learn the language, get some means of supporting the family. And the family would follow the next year.
Whereabouts was this? Did he work? Whereabouts in Britain did he work? You know,
somewhere, I can't remember. I can't remember, because he was all I wanted was the parcels he sent us back.
Yeah.
Oranges, for instance, were on ration, but he would send us his ration back, and there might be 2 oranges in that box that was on top of the cupboard that I was longing for, absolutely longing for. And he sent me a pair of sandals, which were too big and gave me blisters.
Yeah.
But they were grand. My sister had been at the boarding school, a weekly boarding school, which they set up for the teenagers. So didn't see much of her. And after my father left, somebody finally took my mother seriously. She'd been dragging me from doctor to doctor, saying this child has a cough that won't go away. And they say, oh, look at her pink cheeks. Nothing wrong with this child.
No.
They finally took an X-ray. I had tuberculosis.
Oh, wow.
Which was very bad at that time, very bad. And I was sent off to a sanatorium. I was there for 6 months. I remember nothing of it, and I can only tell I was there 6 months because my school report shows that I missed half the school year.
Wow.
So after that, as you couldn't get to England if you had TB and you got checked, we were dead scared that I would be found to still have it or whatever. And we had to go through 2 transit camps. And we were several months in the first one, and we got really worried. That's where I did meet somebody who had been on the Moiro, the ship that sank. She and her children and her husband. And the only person they had lost was the baby who was strapped to her husband's back.
Okay.
Very sad.
Yeah.
Well, eventually, after 2 transit camps, we made it, and being tested for TB, etc. Nobody checked up on me because of the pink cheeks, etc. So I don't know whether I still had signs or not, but certainly cleared up once I got to England. And then we had to, we were in a camp there where they organized the school for us in Corsham, in Wiltshire. Of course, we all spoke German.
Yeah.
All nationalities, we all spoke German, which confused the teachers who were English a heck of a lot. But we all attended the cinema across the road too, and we learned a lot of English from Tarzan films. And I remember one that was called The Gorilla. And of course, to me, a gorilla was a gorilla, and I wasn't thinking of the spies, the soldiers that my father had been watching out for in Poland. I waited the whole film. There was no gorilla in it.
You think you got into the wrong room?
Yeah. Wrong spelling. So from then on, my parents wanted to work together and to have housing, and that was difficult. That limited the number of jobs you could get. Well, what had happened was that, of course, all the servants from the big houses had gone to war, had either been killed or came back and expected better jobs. So my parents put themselves up as housekeeper and cook and butler.
Yeah.
Went into domestic service. My mother was a fantastic cook. Just show her a picture and she can do it. So we lived in a number of grand places. The first place was Westerbork School, which is a boarding school. I didn't go to the school. I went to the Tetbury Church of England primary. But we lived in this grand building, and then we moved to Gloucestershire at Great Rollright Manor, which was owned by the parents of the present Duchess of Devonshire. Amanda, the Duchess, was about 5 years old when we moved there. I was about 11. So she loved to have me read to her and bath her as well. She didn't want her nanny.
No.
Still remember that. Yeah. From there, we went to Lim Castle and so on. And then a council house. That was a come down. But the thing was that although I was too old to take the 11 plus in my first year in England, I just couldn't, I didn't understand the paper at all. When they put me into a secondary modern, the next year, the teachers there said she needs to take the 11 plus. She doesn't belong here. And so I had the 11 plus later. I got on the borderline. The grammar school headmaster wanted to meet with me. And I remember he said to me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "An authoress." No one had ever said that to him before.
No.
So that was it. I was lucky in that I went through the grammar school system. I went through the university. My sister, who was 17 when we got to England, her schooling was all disregarded. She had to go out to work.
Yeah.
So she had to go out to work and leave her family and learn things on her own.
Age 17.
Yeah.
That's only a year older than we are now.
And it haunted those who were maybe a year or two older than me as well.
Yeah.
That they didn't have this chance, no matter how intelligent they were, they didn't have it.
No.
But I've always been grateful to the UK for taking us. And when a few years later, the Hungarian Revolution happened and we got Hungarian refugees who came in and demanded, "I'm a doctor, I expect to have a job as a doctor," etc., etc. I thought, where's your gratitude?
Yeah.
Stop that. Yeah. So that's it, really.
Really. And can I just ask, how did you come to live in Bermuda? How did that happen?
I applied for a job. My tutor at university had said, never stay more than 3 years in your first job. He said, no matter how much you love it or hate it, 3 years. and then you move, otherwise you never learn. So I taught in Leicestershire for 3 years, and then I applied for a few things that I didn't get, and came up this thing in Bermuda, and I just thought, well, I'll never get that. Stuck my application in the post and forgot all about it.
Yeah.
Next thing I knew, I got the thick envelope wad of papers with a letter saying, I'm much impressed by your application.
Yeah. And you moved there?
Yep, here
Wonderful.
to teach French.
Have you ever been back to Estonia,
Yes.
to Poland, to Germany?
Because Estonia, well, the Baltic states, I keep saying the war, as World War II there didn't end until 1991, when the Soviets quit.
Cool.
Soviet Union, yeah.
Yeah, and my sister and I went back in 92. And very little had changed in the 50 years or so.
Yeah.
We went to what used to be my uncle's farm, my Uncle Richard's farm, my father's second brother. My cousin lived there now, and it was exactly the same.
Yeah.
There had been no modernization of any sort. I said, okay, that building's shorter. And they said, yes, we took a part of it off.
Yeah.
No modernization, because they'd all been taken over and made into kolkhozes.
Yeah. That's the Soviets, isn't it? The Soviets.
You know, where they all work, the community work together, and she had trouble getting it back. When we, there was practically no food.
No.
We had a hard time finding anything to eat in restaurants. Or even getting into restaurants. Oh no, we closed. We closed 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Sandwich or something, no. We went back in 98, 6 years later, and things had changed a lot.
Yeah, give it a bit of time after the end. And
yes, because once the Estonians had it to themselves, investors came in. Investors flooded in. In fact, I have friends here who work for companies which moved to Estonia. And things were much, much better in 98.
Yeah.
And we met up with a second cousin that my sister had managed to get in touch with, the nephew of the soldier who died in Poland, Thomas, and his wife. And when they came to meet us at the hotel, it turned out that they were the ones whose father or grandfather had picked up our photo albums, the albums that mother had pulled some sheets out of. They picked up the photo albums and taken them home with them in case the Russians used them to identify people. They had come in the night following our departure, the two brothers, my father's two brothers, with a horse and cart, and they'd lowered furniture down from the windows and taken anything that had any bearing on who we were. And some of that furniture was in my cousin's farm and was in the room in which we slept on our first visit, my sister and I, which was really very strange. There was a wardrobe with an oval mirror. And I remember my father picking me up when I was about 2 years old and showing me what I looked like. He just cut all my hair off, as was the custom in those days to encourage adult hair to grow through. You know, you have your baby hair, and of course your own hair grows through, but to encourage it, I think it was a Russian custom too. They cut all my hair off. I remember cramming my straw hat on so the little boys wouldn't see that I was bald.
No.
So yeah, but anyway, that wardrobe was there at the farm.
Wow.
Been back quite a few times now, and my second cousin Thomas and his wife have been here, and I've had other Estonians here. The NatWest International Games, International Island Games were held here in 2013, and an Estonian contingent came out here, and I was put in charge of them. They'd never had an Estonian before anywhere, which was wonderful. And some of them have been back.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's brilliant. Are we good to wrap up, or do you have any more to say? Or?
Oh, I can go on for hours, but
we are sort of limited on time. But yeah, come on, Jonah, why don't you wrap up?
Honestly,
do you want any pictures?
Yes. Can we do that at the end? I'll just wrap up now and finish recording.
Yeah, and I'll email you some pictures.
That would be
brilliant.
Amazing.
Okay.
Oh,
lovely to see you guys.
Pictures. I thought you meant us takes that. That would be amazing. Okay. I'm left speechless, to be honest. You have lived through so many different lives all in one. I don't really know how to describe it. You're just such a fascinating person. Thank you so much for sharing your lifetime worth of stories with us.
My pleasure. The thing is that it does depend on your perspective. The Russians weren't all bad.
No.
And the Germans weren't all bad, but it depends on your experience with them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you know a novel by Ian Sarayi called The Silver Sword?
I do not.
It used to be very popular, perhaps 25 years ago. So I found myself teaching it when I subbed for somebody. And it deals with Polish children whose parents have been taken by the Germans. And they give pursuit, they try to track down their parents. And they reach the same camp that I was in Poznan. It's actually mentioned there, and I said to these 10-year-olds, well, I was actually there. Now, who's bad, who's good? When I was there, it was in German hands, and they were helping us. When the children reach there, it's in Russian hands, and the Russians are helping them.
Yeah.
So it all depends on your experiences, and they all went home. Well, they went home and they talked to their parents, and that was good because the parents got back to me and said we had a really good discussion.
Oh, we would love you as our sub teacher or teacher. That would be amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. I'll be following you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.